This is about the United States losing decision-making authority over our healthcare decisions and instead enhancing the authority of the United Nations through their healthcare arm, the World the World Health Organization.
So today on What to Say and How to Say It, we are doing something a little bit different. We have what we would consider kind of a, I don't want to scare you, but like emergency situation. This week is the World Health Assembly, the World Health Organization. There is a meeting in Geneva. It's really important. And people in the United States, all over the world, honestly, need to be taking action by contacting your political leaders. We will have for you a phone number, but you need to understand what's going on. I have the privilege of talking to the Honorable Michelle Bachman. She is a former Republican representative from Minnesota here in the United States. She also has run for president, and she did not get the nomination. Mitt Romney got it, but she was a heavy contender for that. She is a Christian woman with a lot to say and is really smart. So we're going to check into this interview. And as you become aware, you can start looking at the links that are in the write-up for this episode. And if you can't find those, please just go to our website at greaterimpact.org and go over to the podcast and check it out. You should be able to find things there. All right. And with that, let's go listen to Michelle Bachman. Michelle, take it away. Fill us in.
Thank you so much for having me on your show today. I really appreciate it. This is about the United States losing decision-making authority over our healthcare decisions and instead enhancing the authority of the United Nations through their healthcare arm, the World Health the World Health Organization. And people shouldn't feel bad that they don't know about this issue. I think it was most likely by design. It was meant to be kept under the radar. It was back January 18th when the Joe Biden administration shared amendments with the United Nations World Health Organization, amendments that they proposed to change the international health rules. Back in 2005, the United States joined something called the International Health Rules, and that's the governing rules for the World Health Organization. So we joined back then, and now the Biden administration wants to amend those rules, and the amendments are quite alarming. Initially, they were meant to hold China accountable. At least that's what people were told. These amendments were actually proposed during the Trump years under the Trump administration. They didn't go forward, quite simply because President Trump saw how wrong and in some cases evil the World Health Organization was. So he wisely pulled the United States out of the World Health Organization, and he withdrew our funding. When Joe Biden came into the White House, he did just the opposite. He put the United States back into the World Health Organization, and he gave our money back to the World Health Organization. Why is this an issue? Because during the recent COVID events of the last 2.5 years, this is one of the most unsettling, world-changing events with healthcare in the last 100 years. You'd have to go back to the Spanish flu of 100 years ago to find anything that's even comparable. And the World Health Organization, a subsidiary or the healthcare arm of the United Nations, actually was wrong on virtually everything they proposed or said during the last 2.5 years. They were led by a man named Tedros. And Tedros is a man from Ethiopia. He was in charge of healthcare in Ethiopia. He's not a medical doctor. And he was found to have tried to cover up 3 different cholera epidemics. So he doesn't have a good reputation. And that may be why communist China thought, hey, this is our guy. And so communist China put Tedros up to be the director general of the World Health Organization. And Tedros has paid back communist China by being an apologist or a defender of communist China. So at the UN, the United States is the #1 funder of just about everything at the United Nations. We are certainly the #1 funder of the World Health Organization, yet it is Communist China who seems to have control over the World Health Organization. So if they had their guy, Tedros, already installed as their spokesman and their defender at the World Health Organization, the week of May 22nd through May 28th is when the World Health Assembly, which is the governing board, I don't want to be too confusing, but the World Health Assembly is the governing board of the WHO, the World Health Organization. And the World Health Assembly meets May 22nd through 28th for the purpose of going over rule changes or conducting their annual business. So that's what's happening. Only this year, Communist China is putting up Tedros to re-up him for another 5-year stint. And presumably, if he hasn't been already, he will be this week re-elected for another 5-year term. So under the Biden amendments, the one person in the world who is empowered to make decisions about emergency declarations is the Director General of the World Health Organization. So we know who this person is. We know who this person will be for the next 5 years. It's Tedros of Ethiopia, who's already been caught as a liar for covering up cholera epidemics. But we also know he was completely wrong about his pronouncements during the COVID era of the last 2 years. This man now will be empowered under the Biden amendments to have power. How do I know this? I've read the amendments, and I encourage you to read the amendments. I know up on your website, you have several links, and in 2 of those links, people can click and go directly and read the amendments for themselves. And I encourage you to do that. That's a primary source document. It goes specifically to Article 12, Section 2, line 6. And you will see that the United States and any other nation, there's 194 nations who are part of the UN, and that covers 99.4% of all people on Earth. And in Article 12, Section 2, line 6, you will see crossed out that the UN has to consult with a member nation, and then a member nation can disagree with that consultation. But instead, what is new is that the Director General of the World Health Organization unilaterally, on his own, will be empowered to declare an emergency declaration that the United States, for instance, is in a situation of having a public health emergency of international concern. That's the term, public health emergency of international concern. When that is the case, then the Director General of the UN or of the World Health Organization has the right to monitor the United States. He has a right to send in evaluators into our country. He has the right to give us about 24 hours notice of being a public health emergency of international concern. And we only get 24 hours to 48 hours to disagree with him. If we disagree with him, he would have the right potentially to issue sanctions against the United States, maybe lockdowns, maybe fines, maybe travel bans. There's all sorts of things that come into effect. He has the right to consult with the World Trade Organization, with the International Livestock Association, the International Agriculture Association. And a lot of recommendations could come forth. It could be crippling to the United States or any other country. We know that this is concerning because President Biden is the one who is leading the charge to change the current international rules for the World Health Assembly. They're changing this in such a way so that the Biden administration is knowingly weakening and denying America's sovereign authority over healthcare, and instead giving it to the Director General Tedros and enhancing his authority. So this is a big signal to tell us the political will of the Biden administration, and we can fully expect that the Biden administration will enforce whatever it is that Tedros comes up with. Well, why would we do that, you ask? Well, for the last 2 years, that's already what's been happening. Joe Biden has been president in the White House for the last year and a half, and before that, it was Donald Trump. both presidents have operated under emergency powers. COVID came into effect, as you know, in early 2020. It may have appeared in late 2019, but executive powers were issued through an executive order by our president. And people need to realize that whether it's vaccine mandates or mask mandates or lockdowns or any of the other extraordinary measures that we've never seen before that have been taken in the last 2.5 years, certainly here in America, but also around the world, these actions were taken under the guise of emergency powers that the presidents gave to themselves. As a matter of fact, as we're recording today, America still is under emergency powers. Joe Biden still has emergency powers. Just last week, he extended his emergency powers until July of 22 of this year, 2022. So we are still operating on emergency powers. There's no need for Joe Biden to continue to operate under emergency powers. I would highly encourage that everyone contact your U.S. Senator and contact your member of Congress and contact your governor and your state attorney general. Tell them we want the president of the United States to rescind his emergency powers. We don't want him to act under emergency powers anymore, because he could tell us tomorrow, you need to be locked down and confined to your house for another 2 weeks if he wants to. You've probably heard about monkeypox. This is the new thing now that apparently is in Maryland. Belgium has already put their people under a lockdown due to monkeypox for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Shanghai has confined the people who live in that city. That's 26 million people. By contrast, New York City here in America has 19 million people. The communist Chinese have effectively put their own people in captivity, 26 million people in Shanghai. And in some extent, they've even locked people in their houses and apartments. They've nailed the doors shut. We've never seen anything like this. There's no question people have died behind these closed doors. People are starving to death. They can't get food even delivered to them in many cases, or much less medical supplies. Can you imagine? Some of the people in Shanghai have been confined to their apartments since end of March. It's now end of May. And it isn't until next month, China's saying that they're going to open people up out of their apartments. That's 26 million people that the communist Chinese have done this to their own people. This is under emergency powers. China's a communist nation. They operate under emergency powers. In the United States, we're different. We're a constitutional republic. And because of the pretext of a healthcare emergency, people have literally lost their jobs. They've lost their businesses. Many people have lost their health. Our American healthcare delivery system has been forever changed. Our American economy has been destroyed, all under the auspices of the use of emergency powers, both by mayors and by governors and by the president of the United States. Why this is so concerning, this subject matter that I'm talking to you about today, is because President Biden is proposing that this same level of emergency powers that he has used to destroy the American economy be granted to the Director General of the World Health Organization. So if you were not happy with the pronouncements by Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx or the Centers for Disease Control that we were forced to live under, and by the way, most of the pronouncements that they made were exact carbon copies of what the World Health Organization wanted, what their pronouncements were. So we've effectively been living under the World Health Organization for the last 2 years. And if you're on Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg for the last 2 years has issued the order that no one can post a posting on Facebook or on Twitter if it doesn't agree with the World Health Organization. So already in our social media, we've been forced to agree with the World Health Organization. A lot of woke corporations have said that their customers and their employees have to be in alignment with the World Health Organization. And that's why they've mandated and demanded vaccines. Now the CDC is recommending a second booster for people in the United States. And in the United States, I believe the FDA has just granted use for Pfizer for 5 to 11-year-olds to be vaccinated. So the Biden administration isn't giving up. They're continuing to want to push more vaccines that haven't proven to be what the World Health Organization said they would be. They haven't been effective in stopping transmission of COVID. They haven't been effective in stopping people from getting sick and in many cases dying, or it hasn't been effective in transmitting the disease. The masks have not been effective in transmitting the disease. So this is all very concerning, what we're seeing. So the World Health Organization has already, whether it is through woke corporations, through the woke social media crowd, through the Centers for Disease Control, through our senior health advisors, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Deborah Birx, already these pronouncements have gone forward. If you look at our CDC, it's a virtual carbon copy of what the World Health Organization has made pronouncements for. Now, this would empower the World Health Organization through these amendments, should they pass May 22nd through 28th in Geneva, Switzerland, to have this same level of extraordinary emergency powers. These powers would come into force and effect in November of this year, November of 2022. Normally, when amendments pass, there's an 18-month period until they come into force and effect. The Biden administration shortens that period of time to 6 months. And of course, we know we're going to have our airspace taken up with elections. There's elections that are coming up in this November. There's summer coming up, summer activities. So it'll be very difficult for people to weigh in. And also what this means, half the nations on earth, half the member nations of the UN would have to rescind their vote. So the vote is taking place in Geneva, Switzerland, May 22nd through 28th. And in order to reverse this vote, more than half of the nations would have to pull out after taking this vote May 22nd through 28th. So it's a very high bar. It is very unlikely. And so, of course, that's difficult.
So what's really important is sovereignty of the United States. So yes. Course of action, what does the average citizen need to do? And then where does that lead, hopefully?
Well, the average citizen needs to go to your website, and there's 3 links that you have, and people can, it is a complicated issue, but trust me, you can understand this issue if you even read just one of these articles. All 3 articles are excellent and they're short. You can read these articles, and there's also a link if you want to read for yourself these actual amendments and see for yourself what they are. You can take a look at it. What I would recommend that people do is then call their US Senator and call their House member. You can also put up on your website the Capitol Switchboard number.
Yep, we got it.
Okay, so you've got that. When you call that Capitol Switchboard, just say, hi, my name is Mary. I live in Kentucky. I need to be connected to my 2 US senators. They'll either give you the phone number for your senators or they'll connect you. And then you can say, I live in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And then they will give you the name of your representative and the House of Representatives, and you can contact that person. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to know everything about this matter. You just need to say, I want my senator to make sure that the United States doesn't give our healthcare decision-making power to the WHO. That's all you have to say. Or you can say, I want to make sure my senator tells Joe Biden to withdraw the Biden amendments. Mm-hmm. If the vote is too late, just say, I want to get out of the World Health Organization. I don't want the United States to be in the World Health Organization anymore. I want us to get it out. And you can say to your senator, I want you to have hearings on this. I want you to have hearings on this in the Senate. I want hearings on this in the House. But the number one thing you need to say is, I want Joe Biden to give up emergency powers. I want my governor to give up emergency powers. I want my mayor to give up emergency powers. I want us to go back to living under the Constitution, because when our president is acting under emergency powers, we're no longer living under the Constitution. We're living under emergency powers. That's why these unconstitutional actions have happened in the last 2.5 years, because it's not under the Constitution. We're living under emergency powers. So the number one thing to say, if it's the only thing you say, Tell your US senators and your House member, we've got to stop living under emergency powers. And you make sure, Senator so-and-so or Representative so-and-so, that we no longer can let our president live under emergency powers. Don't give him any more money. Don't vote for any more bills until he stops making us live under emergency powers.
No, that's great advice. And that we have a lot of people in the country that want to do something. They just didn't know what to do. They'll learn about this, they'll take some action, and we will be praying for you. I know you're doing a ton of interviews. I appreciate you taking a few minutes so you can squeak over and share some stuff with us. We're praying for your voice and the message. Thank you so much for standing up for America.
You're welcome. And be sure you read at least one of those articles, if not all three. They're short, they're to the point. The other thing is, don't despair. Don't think that it's the end of the world, because remember, there's prayer. And I want to encourage everybody, pray without ceasing, because God does not abandon us. He promises us, he hears us when we cry out to him. And he says that his banner over us is love. So there's a lot of evil, wicked people that want to do a lot of evil, wicked things, but God is bigger than they are. Pray Psalms chapter 2. It says that even though the nations come against God, he sits on his throne and he laughs at the nations. So trust in a holy God who made us. And thank you for having me on your show today.
Okay, so at the very least, here's the phone number for the White House switchboard. If you don't do anything else, call this phone number, find out who your representatives and senators are, and talk to them about emergency powers, talk to them about getting out of the World Health Organization. And the phone number is 202-456-1111. That's 202-456-1111. And in true what to say it and how to say it form, be respectful. Do not yell at your senators or representatives. Don't shout and don't swear at them. They are people that will respond more positively to your suggestions and requests if you are respectful to them. And so if we could encourage you to do that, that would be awesome. Let them know your concerns. Let them know where you're at on these issues. Please take the time to read just one of those articles, but make a phone call and let's undo some of the potential in the political arena that may impact the sovereignty of our country in the future. Thanks for being here today.